1 in every 25 Americans who visits a hospital to get well ends up getting an infection during their stay. That's according to the CDC. A new federal program started last year penalizes hospitals with the highest infection rates by withholding Medicare funding. Well, we found hospitals right here in Cincinnati penalized as a result of something called hospital-acquired conditions. Scripps national investigative correspondent Mark Greenblatt shares how hospitals are being held accountable.
Greta Houston feels lucky to be alive.
I got a serious infection from a simple procedure.
Back in '99, she needed a bunion removed from her foot and checked into the renowned George Washington University Hospital in D.C. Days after her procedure, she registered a 104-degree fever and was rushed to a different hospital.
You spent 10 days in the hospital as a result of all this?
I did, and I had antibiotics pumped into my veins every 8 hours.
Why was that necessary?
To save my life.
Houston sued George Washington, blaming the infection on negligence during surgery. The hospital denied fault but paid a small settlement back in 2004. 15 years later, the government is finally cracking down on hospitals in an effort to reduce infection rates. Now, GW is on the first ever list of hospitals penalized by the federal government for having too many hospital-acquired conditions like blood or urinary tract infections.
It's just appalling.
But turns out some of the nation's biggest and most well-known hospitals joined George Washington on the federal government's list of poorest performers. Medicare withheld money from the Ronald Reagan UCLA Medical Center, the Cleveland Clinic in Ohio, and even the Yale New Haven Hospital. It's part of a Get Tough approach the Centers for Disease Control supports, saying more than 700,000 patients still acquire hospital infections each year.
Around 70,000 of those people will die while they're in the hospital.
We traveled to CDC headquarters in Atlanta, where Dr. Arjun Srinivasan told us hospitals can often take simple steps to lower infection rates.
As many as 70% of those infections are preventable through relatively simple and straightforward practices.
Like more rigorous hand washing rules and removing catheters from patients sooner. But some hospitals feel unfairly singled out.
The bigger the hospital is, the more likely they are to be penalized.
Some of these larger hospitals do tend to admit larger numbers of patients. They may admit sicker patients. But I think an important message to note is that there are also some very large hospitals with extremely low infection rates. And just because you're a big hospital doesn't go hand in hand that you have to have a high infection rate.
The penalized University of Cincinnati Medical Center did not respond to our request for comment. Other hospitals did report a significant reduction in hospital-acquired conditions. Mark Greenblatt for the Scripps National Bureau in Washington.